My husband promised to grow old with me. He said it one night in our kitchen, his hands still wet from washing dishes. Smiling like he actually meant it. "We'll be gray and grumpy together," he said. I remember laughing because I believed him. Back then, I believed everything he said. We grew older, yes, but not together. It started small, the way distance always does. A late meeting, a missed dinner, the quiet hum of his phone lighting up at midnight. He said it was just work. I wanted to believe that, too. But truth doesn't whisper, it lingers. It stains. The affair lasted 3 years before I found out. I wasn't even looking. I was folding laundry when I found the receipt, an anniversary dinner at a restaurant I'd never been to, for two. The date matched the night he'd told me he was out of town visiting a client. That was the first night I stopped cooking for him. When I confronted him, he didn't deny it. He just looked tired. "We've changed," he said, like it was mutual. Like I'd also been slipping into someone else's bed. "I still care about you, but I need something different." I stared at the man who'd once sworn we'd face everything together. And realized this was the everything. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just nodded. Then I did what I always do, I planned. I told him he could have the house. The one we built together. The one I designed down to the last doorknob. I told him I didn't want to fight over things. I wanted peace. He looked relieved. That was his first mistake. 2 weeks later, I moved into a small townhouse I'd quietly purchased under my own name years before, back when I first noticed how easily his promises slipped through cracks. I didn't tell him about it. I didn't tell anyone. While he moved into our house with her, I started building something new. I kept the same job but changed everything else, my name on the mailbox, the color of the walls, the silence in my evenings. I learned to sleep diagonally, to eat what I wanted, to not wait for footsteps that wouldn't come. And while he was playing house with her, I was buying properties, quietly, carefully, using the money I'd once saved for our retirement. 10 years passed. I ran into him at the grocery store last winter. His hair had gone gray. Mine had, too, though I wore it differently now, shorter, sharper. He looked surprised to see me. "You look happy," he said. "I am," I told him. "And you?" He hesitated. "We're fine. It's just different." Of course it was. Growing old doesn't mean growing wise. He'd learned that the hard way. I didn't hate him. I just outgrew the version of myself that believed forever had to mean together. Now, when I drive past our old street, I don't slow down. I don't look back. I just smile faintly at the porch lights glowing in windows that no longer belong to me or him. My husband promised to grow old with me. And he did, just not in the same house. I suppose, in his own way, he kept his promise. He got his version of freedom. I got mine. But mine came with peace, and his still looks like pretending. My husband promised to grow old with me. He said it the night we signed the papers for our first house, standing in an empty living room, echoing with plans. "This will be our forever," he told me, his arm around my shoulders. Both of us laughing about how old we'd be, still tripping over the same squeaky floorboard. Back then, I believed him. Back then, forever felt possible. But promises age faster than people. Somewhere between the promotion he got and the quiet I learned to live with, we stopped sharing mornings. Then we stopped sharing dinners. Then one day, we stopped sharing truth. He said he was working late more often. I didn't check, not at first. But love makes you notice even what you pretend not to see, the faint perfume that isn't yours, the shirt buttoned wrong, The way he'd sigh when I spoke as if my words were interruptions, not conversation. The affair wasn't shocking. The ease of it was. When I finally asked him, he didn't apologize. He just looked tired and said, "You deserve someone who makes you feel alive again." As if betrayal was a favor. As if leaving was noble. He moved out a week later, into a house 10 minutes away, with her. I told him I wouldn't fight. I let him keep the one we built together, the one with the garden I'd tended for 20 years. I even smiled when I handed him the keys. Because I'd already decided that letting go doesn't mean losing, it means reclaiming. I bought a small apartment downtown. Started painting again. I filled the walls with color, the kind he never liked, deep reds, electric blues. Anything that didn't whisper. I took trips without telling anyone. Slept diagonally in bed. I learned what silence sounds like when it isn't heavy, it's peace. Years passed. One afternoon, I saw him in the grocery store. He looked older, slower, a little softer around the edges. The woman he left me for wasn't with him. He smiled awkwardly. "You look good," he said. I smiled back. "I am good." He told me he still lived in our house. Said it felt strange being there alone now that the kids were gone. I didn't tell him that I'd driven by once. And that the garden he promised to take care of had turned wild and unkept. I didn't need to. The image of it said everything. He'd grown old, just like he promised. Only surrounded by what he couldn't maintain. Now, when people ask if I'm married, I say, once. He grew old in his house. I grew free in mine. And maybe that's how forever really works, not shared under one roof, but divided between those who stay stuck in promises and those who finally learn how to outlive them. My husband promised to grow old with me. He did, just not in the same house. And if I'm honest, I like the view from mine better. My husband promised to grow old with me. He said it in the soft light of our first apartment, when we still shared cheap wine and expensive dreams. "We'll get old together," he told me. "You'll nag me about my socks. And I'll drive you crazy with bad jokes." I laughed, because back then, I believed in simple futures. But promises fade faster than paint. Somewhere between the promotion he chased and the silence I learned to live with, our home became a waiting room for two people growing apart in parallel. At first, I thought I could fix it. That's what wives do, right? Patch the cracks, hide the bruises, smile at dinner. But love isn't a renovation, it's a choice you keep remaking. And one day, he stopped choosing. He said he needed space. I gave him a year. Then he asked for understanding. I gave him 2. When he finally asked for divorce, I didn't argue. I just said, "You already left a long time ago." He moved into a house across town. A newer one. The kind with glass walls and a view he thought would make him feel young again. He called it a fresh start. I called it proof. Proof that he didn't want to grow old with me, he just didn't want to grow old at all. I stayed in our house, the one we'd built, the one filled with echoes. For months, I kept everything exactly as it was, his coat by the door, his mug in the cabinet, his side of the bed untouched. Then one morning, I woke up and realized I'd been living like a ghost in my own life. I opened every window, stripped the bed, donated his clothes, and painted the walls white. It wasn't forgiveness. It was cleansing. Over the years, we aged separately, but never entirely apart. Birthdays, weddings, mutual friends kept us orbiting. I watched him grow gray, slower, quieter. He watched me rebuild. I traveled, took up photography, bought a little bookstore by the sea. He once stopped by, alone, to congratulate me. His hands trembled slightly when he spoke. "You've done well," he said. "You look happy." "I am," I told him. "You?" He smiled faintly. "I'm older." When he left, I realized he had kept his promise after all. He had grown old with me, just from a distance. His regret was the shadow of what we'd shared, and mine was gone, replaced by something steadier than bitterness, peace. Now, every so often, I pass his street and see his porch light glowing through the trees. Two houses, two versions of the same ending. He grew old in his and I in mine. The difference is that I grew through it. My husband promised to grow old with me. He did, just not in the same house. And maybe that's what forever really means. We age with those who shaped us, even if the walls around us aren't shared anymore. My husband promised to grow old with me. He said it on the night we moved into our first home. Sitting cross-legged on the living room floor, pizza box between us, paint still drying on the walls. "We'll grow old here," he whispered, "right in this house." I remember how certain he sounded, how easily I believed him. Back then, love felt like a guarantee. But time has a way of showing you the fine print of promises. We did grow old, just not together. Somewhere between mortgage payments and birthdays that felt more like chores. Something in him drifted. It wasn't sudden, it never is. He started staying late at work, forgetting anniversaries, using silence as punctuation. I tried to save us. I suggested therapy. He said he was too tired. I asked if he was happy. He said, "Don't start." The only thing that grew between us anymore was distance. The day he left wasn't dramatic. He didn't yell. He didn't cry. He just said, "I can't do this anymore." I asked, "Do what?" He looked at me with that distant, pitying calm people use when they've already decided. "Pretend," he said. And then he was gone. He bought a smaller place across town, sleek, minimal, all white walls and new furniture. A house with no memories. He called it a reset. I called it what it was, running. I stayed. At first because I couldn't imagine leaving, and then because I realized it was mine. I tended the garden he never helped with, fixed the roof he always said he would, painted over the bedroom where promises went to die. Slowly, the house stopped feeling like a museum of what used to be and started feeling like proof that I could live without him. Years passed. His hair turned gray. Mine did too, though I wore it proudly. One day, at the grocery store, I saw him in line ahead of me. He turned, startled, then smiled like someone remembering a song from another life. "You look good," he said. "I always knew you'd be okay." "I am," I said. "You?" He hesitated. "Lonely sometimes." He asked if I still lived in our house. I said yes. "I drive by sometimes," he admitted. "You still keep the lights on in the window." "Of course," I said. "Someone has to." He smiled, a little broken, then left. I stood there for a long time afterward, thinking how strange it was, we'd grown old. Just like he promised. He in his house, me in mine. Maybe that was the truest form of aging together. Carrying pieces of each other quietly into the future, without ever sharing the same space again. Now, every evening, I water the garden as the sun sets, the same way I did when we were young. The air smells the same, but it feels different, lighter. Because I finally understand that promises don't always need to be kept to be complete. My husband promised to grow old with me. He did, just not in the same house. And that's okay. He took the silence, I took the peace, and somehow, both of us got what we were looking for. My husband promised to grow old with me. He said it in his 20s, when his hair still smelled of ambition and his hands knew how to hold me without hesitation. We'll be gray and slow and still teasing each other, he said. Like time would be kind to people who dared to dream. I believed him. I built our whole life on that belief. We grew older, yes, but not together. Somewhere along the way, life divided into his and mine. His late nights at the office. His new gym routine. His sudden love of space. I told myself it was just a phase. I stopped expecting him at dinner, stopped asking who he was texting. Stopped reminding him that love isn't something you schedule. He promised me forever but started treating forever like an obligation. When I found out about her, it didn't even feel like betrayal. It felt like confirmation. A quiet truth finally stepping out of the shadows. She was younger, of course, with the same hungry eyes I once had, the kind that mistake a man's attention for safety. He said he didn't mean to hurt me, but that he needed to feel alive again. I wanted to tell him that he could have tried feeling alive with me, but I didn't. I let him go. I told him to take the house, the one we built. The one filled with memories that now smelled like regret. You can have it, I said. I've lived enough in places that no longer fit me. He looked stunned, maybe even guilty, but I was already gone long before he packed his suitcase. For a while, I lived in a small apartment downtown. The kind with thin walls and no expectations. I filled it with plants, music, and silence that didn't ache. I painted the kitchen yellow, he always hated yellow, and adopted a dog that barked too much. Slowly, life became mine again. Years passed. Then one afternoon, I saw him at a park. His hair had turned silver, his back slightly bent. The woman wasn't there. He walked like a man still trying to catch his breath from a life that hadn't gone as planned. He noticed me, smiled, and said, "You haven't aged a day." I laughed. That's because I stopped waiting. We talked briefly, about the kids, the weather. The things people mention when they can't touch the past. When he left, I realized something quietly poetic. He had kept his promise. He had grown old with me, just not beside me. We carried each other through time, even from different addresses. Now, when I sit on my balcony with my tea and feel the breeze soften against my face, I think of him sometimes, not with anger, not with longing, but with recognition. We were both right in our own ways. He found the kind of freedom he thought he needed. I found the peace he didn't know existed. My husband promised to grow old with me. He did, just not in the same house. And maybe that's all aging really is, learning to live with promises that changed shape, but never quite disappeared.